Hello and welcome once again to the How Long to Beat podcast. As always, Alex and Paula join me, Rick, for another episode of fun and wonder and all the words that I didn't prepare that really I should if this was the intro I wanted to go with. I also just pulled the face like they can hear that. Right, okay. This week, as always, we're going to talk about what we've beaten, retired, and been playing. We will then move on to our topic, which for any of you who are in the How Long to Beat Discord, and if you're not, what are you doing? We are going to be picking up on the conversation about subscription and streaming services and why they're evil. And then if and you can already see where the chips are falling. So we'll maybe have time for a question from the community, and then we'll finish off. You know what I'm about to say with
How long to beat the game.
The game.
I stitched you both up.
I was like, wait, where's the lead?
Oh, that was.
It's your fault, Rick.
That was the biggest false start going. Oh dear. Right, Alex, take us in. Tell us about Psychonauts 2.
Yeah.
I'm not sure you can contain your excitement much longer.
Lord no. So I beat 2 games this week. 2 very fun games, actually, both on Game Pass. I beat Psychonauts 2, which, okay, for me, and like, I'm already gonna say I'm like pretty biased about this game. Like, I've played Psychonauts 1, absolutely loved it, but I just played it a couple years ago too. Like, I didn't play it, in its heyday. Like, I played it on the PS4 maybe like, I don't know, 2-3 years ago kind of thing. So I don't even know why I did. I think it's because Rhombus of Ruin was coming out and I'd gotten a PSVR and I had heard of Rhombus of Ruin. It was on sale, so I picked it up and I was like, well, if I'm going to play Rhombus of Ruin, I should probably play Psychonauts first. So I'm of the very small group of people who has played both Psychonauts and the VR one. And the VR game is wonderful. Like, it's excellent. It picks up a day after Psychonauts ends. And this game basically picks up a day after Rhombus of Ruin ends. And so this for me is like a 10 out of 10 game. Like, it is just full on, beautifully paced, super creative, very like organically funny. Like, the characters are my only slight negative I'll give on the character front is that they introduce a slew of like fellow Psychonaut interns, which isn't really like a spoiler or anything. It's just like there's a group of people that you're kind of friends with, and they're not really fleshed out quite as much as other characters are. And I think it's just kind of, it's a product of the storytelling, and you'll sort of see when you play the game what I mean by it. And it's like, they're not bad or anything. They're actually all interesting little characters. I just kind of, and this is sort of a testament to like the writing in the game, is like, I just wanted more of them, honestly. I was like, oh, like, why don't you have them like be more on missions with me and stuff? But then that's also kind of the conceit of Psychonauts, is that, it's a level-based platformer, right? And so the idea is that like when you're entering into different spaces, you're Raz, but you're not being funneled most of the time. Sometimes you're in interesting places where like there's specific things you have to do, but like most of the time you enter into an area and it's kind of like go ahead, explore. There's tons of collectibles and everything to find. So I can kind of understand why like having a companion characters come with you or stuff wouldn't really work, because it's like, well, this isn't like a funneled experience in that way. So yeah, that's kind of my only like little quibble with the game. But I just, oh my God, it's so much fun. And it tackles a story that I think is really, and this is, okay, I'm going to be all over the place with Psychonauts too, because there's so much I want to talk about. So this is something that we've talked about a little bit before, where it's like with art, I'm really interested in stories that try to tap at just something about being human, right? Like, it doesn't matter what it is, the biggest thing, the smallest thing. But Psychonauts 2 really explores some like profound and interesting questions about like justice and like forgiveness and everything that like you might not expect from a game like this. That's a crazy, colorful kind of deal. And like, obviously it's delving into the mind. So there's like funny things, like you're fighting against, like things like sensors, which are like, they come in to like block ideas and stuff, or like get you out of here. And then there's like I'm trying to be careful. I'm trying to think of all the enemies that are like inherent.
Non-spoiler.
Right, yeah. Because there's one enemy that's lovely. But anyway, it deals with things like anxiety and like, depression. And there's this real big theme of like regret and sort of like an age and stuff. And it's a game about healing. Like, that's really what it is. Like, it's a game about like healing through younger generations. And it's just, to me, it's really fascinating. It's like this story of intergenerational trauma, basically, and like, how do you come together? And so I was like, this is really excellent. Like, it's just really good. And then it's all wrapped in a really fucking fun platformer where like all the collectibles unlock shit, right? Like, it's like everything is working towards your progression. So like there's no like arbitrary collectibles, you know? And that's something that I really like, because sometimes in these things, they're like collectathons, you're like, what's the point? Well, they have real tangible benefits because you can upgrade your like psi powers, and like all the collectibles, they rank you up. So at first when you start the game, they're going to keep saying rank up, and you're going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like what's a rank? And then you'll quickly understand, oh, the rank is to upgrade my pins and like get new interesting stuff. And some of the pins can upgrade to like let you traverse levels that you previously couldn't do, and like all sorts of stuff. So a little Metroidvania in that way, but more in the line of platformers where you can explore new areas. So that's awesome. One thing I have to highly recommend is that if you play this game, immediately go into the settings, and under controls there's a setting that allows you to do so there's this thing called levitation, where you create a little ball underneath you, and you kind of roll all over the screen. And it might also be the thing that lets you glide. I'm not entirely sure, but it takes up one of your psi slots, and those slots are valuable because you're going to have 8 psychic powers, and later in the game you're going to be swapping out of them semi-frequently. But if you don't turn on this little setting, you're going to be swapping a lot more. And the setting is, there's 2 of them. There's one that says on triple jump, you start to glide right away. So there's a double jump, then you press a third one and a little balloon will appear and you'll start your glide. So you just have to hit the jump button 3 times. And then there's another button under that says glide to ball. And that means that on the 4th press of the button, your little glide will turn into the levitation ball. So you never have to use the levitation psi power. And I'm telling you, it should just be the default. Like I used that, and it was so fucking helpful, because I've seen some people complain about like I need to use this button. So anyway, that's going into the weeds, like a little bit like technical thing. But if you're going to play the game, do this. Trust me, it makes it just perfect.
But bottom line, what you're saying is that Double Fine have razzed their game.
What?
What?
That's the main character's name. Main character's name
is
Raz.
But what do you mean
They've
by
razzed their game? Raised their game.
Oh, they've raised. But you gotta understand here, razzing is like making fun of someone.
Okay.
In Canada, if you razz someone, you make fun of them. I don't know if that might be.
I'm wasted on this crowd. On this crowd.
Cultural difference. They did raise the bar, though. It's crazy when you think about it. I mean, 20 years since, and like this was first Kickstarted a long time ago. Well, not Kickstarted, like through Fig or something. Ages ago. So it's on PS4 because they agreed that they put it on everything, but there's no PS5 version because, well, Xbox owns it. So there's an Xbox Series X version that's very nice and optimized, but they were like, we'll fulfill our promise to put it on the PS4, and you can play it backwards compatibly on your PS5 if you want. But yeah, future Psychonauts is with Microsoft, and oh my God, I'm telling you, playing this game, it's like, this is what Double Fine can do when they're given the proper budget and time to make their game. Like, they're excellent artists who create incredibly fun games. I had a big goddamn smile on my face the entire time. Like, it was just, it's so beautiful. It's like playing a game from 20 years ago, but in the best way possible, right? Like, you're like, this is a collectathon that's really fun to play, really smooth, looks gorgeous, and has something interesting to say. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. It's like, I know Ukulele came out like a while back, but like that game I think sort of got panned because like, I don't know, you probably agree, like a lot of collectathons are just sort of bare bones, right? Like they don't really have kind of a point to them. There's often no connecting story, and there's no real like, sometimes collectibles are just kind of there. There's no like nice thing tied to it, but like this feels like learning all the lessons of the greats that have come before and like combining them all together.
Yeah, I mean, the collectathon thing's always been like, it's about the journey, not the destination in gameplay form, I feel. And I personally find that quite dull a lot of the time, unless there's something really clicking in it. But by the sounds of it, what you're saying is that Psychonauts adds a destination and makes the journey prettier and better in the process.
Yeah, and you never know what you're going to be doing. Like, there are some levels that are kind of similar, but all the levels are just like, it's wildly different, right? And there's like different conceits. There's like one where you're creating recipes, which is really funny. You're on like a cooking show. It's great. And there's like all this kind of shit in it so I highly recommend. If you have Game Pass, this is like, if you haven't already installed it, like what is wrong with you? Like this game is so goddamn good. Like you need to get on this shit ASAP. Like just very, very fun. So yeah, that's Psychonauts. I sort of wish I extended my playthrough. Like just so I could talk about it more often on the podcast. But I was too good. I had to beat it. All right. The next game that I beat is, believe it or not, Myst, the 1993 classic, but they completely remade the game. And so it's called Myst 2021, is like what it's like, it's just called Myst on the thing, but like, How Long to Beat and whatnot, you'll see it as 2021. And this was first, I believe, remade for Oculus, or like one of the VRs, which apparently in VR, it's fine. But I will admit, I'm curious how it works in VR, because this is a game where you really got to take notes. But I guess in VR, they let you take pictures in game or something, so you can like access those. So I think they have a workaround.
Myst also originally was positionally based, because it was originally essentially a glorified PowerPoint made game. So
True.
It's almost the perfect candidate for VR, because you don't have to have free movement. Or I presume, because they put it in real Myst, presumably you get real movement when it comes back to normal consoles, right?
Oh yeah. So on this one here, it's full real movement, and it's fast. So like you have a walk, but you also have a run, and the run is real nice and clippy. And it is like, man, they remade the entire game in Unreal Engine, and it's beautiful. Like I was saying, it has ray tracing. I was like, Myst has ray tracing. It's just one of those things where I was like, what the fuck? And it seems like they've brought some quality of life improvements, because just from what I've sort of read from like Myst and even real Myst and stuff, there was like weird little quirks about like how many pages you can get and stuff, and like when to carry them, and like they've just made that a bit easier. And so I've noticed, just looking at pictures of the old Myst, of like some of their puzzles, because afterwards I was sort of curious. I was like, how much is it different? Like some of the layouts are a little bit different, right? Like they've kind of, I would say they sort of optimized it a little bit. And so it's not just like we just remade the game. It's like, well, we remade it, but we also made it like just kind of work a little bit better for you if you're playing today, kind of thing. So I thought it was really fun. It's only like 4 and like a half hours, I think, is how long I sunk into it, which is actually a bit shorter, I think, than how long Myst usually takes, because again, they've fixed some shit and it's like a little bit faster. It's really fun. You're on this island. It's like the central node, and it's one of those games like, man, puzzle games owe everything to this game. Like, honest to God, it's like, this is it, man. This is it. And like playing it, I was like, oh, this is Call of the Sea. Oh, this is the way. Like, it's like all these games, you're like, oh, this is it. Like, and the fact that it stands up so well today, like I had a great time. The only part of this game that is kind of stupid is there's like this underground railway thing where you have to like find your way through it. And it's not really a puzzle, like you're like,
it's fully trial and error if it's the one I'm remembering.
Yeah, it is. And so I was doing it and I was like, this isn't really a puzzle, man. Like there's like dings and stuff, but you're like, really, I'm just like backing up, going through, creating a map of my own until I get there. I was like, that's not really a puzzle. So I was like, all right. But yeah, I don't know. It's just good. So some of the like, voice acting and facial animations are still hilarious looking, but like they're better. And also, it's one of those early games where it's like, you're learning through like books and whatnot, and like there are technically audio logs in it and whatnot. So I'm just kind of like, really cool shit going on. So if you have Game Pass, give Myst a try, man. Like it's good shit. It's just a good puzzle game.
And 2 notes on Myst as well. Firstly, if you don't have Game Pass and you think, oh, I want to try one of the other versions, be fucking careful, because there are some dog shit versions of Myst going.
Yeah.
Like my first experience of Myst was the Nintendo DS port.
I have a copy of that, hey.
Oh, don't ever open
no,
it.
I
It's
won't.
cursed. It's not good. It's glitched as hell. Everything's compressed more than it was in the 93 version. There's some of it that is just absolute ass. The 3DS version is basically that one done again with like a 3D kind of paint. There's also a PSP version, which fuck knows how that works, because it's the same slideshow type thing, and
Gotcha.
they've done various sort of crappy bits. Second thing is, and I'm not sure if I've got it on my shelf at the moment. I do. This is of no use to you for listening to this. This is purely for Alex and Paula, so that's fine. The brothers Random Robin Miller, who did Myst, did a trilogy of books in universe without giving anything away, around some. It's like a prologue trilogy around some of the characters that become central to your journey in Myst. They're sort of out of print. I think there's like a big chunky trilogy book, but they're called Myst, the Book of Actress, and then there's 2 others. I've only got the first one with me, but they're really, really good if you like the game and you're like, I want more of this story.
Well, because the story was cool. Like, honestly, like as I was going through it, I was like, this is pretty cool. And like when I finished it, I was like, kind of nice if they tried to make another one instead of just remaking this game 3,000 times. But I'm like, I was like, because that's pretty neat stuff that you got going there. I was like, you created a pretty cool world.
And they carried it on because there's like 5 of the games in this series.
Is there?
Okay. Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Myst, Uru, Riven. There's a couple of others.
Riven, yeah, right. That was the other big one, wasn't it? Yeah, that
Yeah.
was it. Yeah,
And then Uru, it all started to fall into obscurity. The other one, I don't know if it's on Game Pass, is a game called Abduction.
I don't know if it is.
It's made by the same company. It's completely separate from the universe, but it's basically similar gamelay. I've had it on Steam for like 6 years and just never played it. Abduction, Obduction.
Abduction, yeah, okay. Oh, interesting, cool. Interesting. Yeah, Myst was that one that, like, I don't know what it is. Myst just culturally hit something, like, obviously I was a fucking baby in 93. I was 1 year old, so like
I didn't exist in 93.
Yeah, it didn't exist, yeah. So I was like, I don't know. But I just remember Myst being, and like I started talking with Paula about this too in the thing, where it's like Myst, I feel like was sort of derogatorily known as like the mom game, because it was like a game that got so popular and everyone sort of played it because gamers were real nice back in the day, and still are. But anyway,
all of you to assume the situation has improved all that much. No,
yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, but like, but I think the reason too is that like the game is it is accessible, and especially with probably the point and click form, it's actually more like a traditional video game now than it probably was when it first came out, because of the fact that you're moving all throughout the environments. But like, I think it's just a testament to how good this game actually is that it still holds up today, and like you can still go in and have like a great time with it. Oh, one thing that is really important to know about this game actually though, so they do not explain this, but when you're there are levers in this game on a certain area, and yeah. So you have to hold down the interact button, and you have to use the right stick. So this is the only time you ever do this, to move the levers. And like, it doesn't tell you, because some levers will move just by pressing interact on it. So like, just by pressing the interact button, some levers will go up, but then for some reason, some of them don't. And I was like, I actually had to Google. I was like, bruh, how do I make these levers move? I was like, I know what I got to do. I know I have to use these levers, but how do I do it? And like, I found some beautiful soul was like, oh, bro, hold that RT button and move that right stick. It'll work. And I was like, oh, thank Jesus. Because like, no combination seemed to be doing it.
So for the remake, they literally just bloober teamed some of the levers.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's how the levers worked originally anyway. I'm not really sure.
Well, no, I don't think so. I thought you were talking about something completely different, which is why I started laughing, but that's
no. I think the reason maybe is that there are a few levers where you don't necessarily need to move it all the way, right? Like, it's like they can kind of, like, to solve the puzzle, you kind of had to figure out, do I go all the way up?
My memory's fuzzy.
So, yeah, anyway.
My memory's fuzzy.
Just as a PSA, if you get stuck at one point on some levers, just make sure you do that. Anyway, good game. I highly recommend it.
And I have to add that to my wish list.
Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this new version is easily the definitive version. Also, if you played Myst before, I didn't try this mode obviously, but at the beginning, they offer you randomization of puzzles. So,
oh, sick.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know what that means. Like, I was like, does that mean just the answers are different, but the puzzles are inherently the same? Does that mean you drastically change puzzle? I was like, I don't know what that means, but they do change it up. So if you're really familiar, they had the classic option. That's what I played, because I was like, well, I'm going to do it classic first, just to know it's up. But yeah, maybe I'll go back and see what the randomized is. Anyway, Rick, you want to tell us what it was you beat? Because I know, Paula, you got nothing this week, huh?
Yeah, and you have got a retirement, Alex. That's new. Okay, so I thought it was going to be just one long road of me, but we'll start with the completions and we'll go from there. So I completed 2 games this week. The first of which was Root Film for the PS4. I really liked this. Really liked it. Overall, I will say my main criticism is that it really sags in the middle. So like the first 25% of the game, excellent. The last 25% of the game, excellent. It almost lost me in the middle. And if I wasn't kind of interested where some aspects of it go, didn't already know it's quite a short game to start with, I clocked it in around about 14 hours, wasn't loving some of the characters and the art, I might not have stuck with it. And as satisfying and interesting and compelling as the conclusion and the final sort of route to it are, I really think that they could have dropped some more breadcrumbs, spaced it out a little bit, made it a little bit clearer a little bit earlier where it was going without giving too much away. The game is split up into 7 chapters, 5 of which star Max Yagamo and 2 of which star his sister Riho. Now, the 2 starring Riho are connected, but it's not immediately obvious how. It only really becomes obvious at the end of the 4th of Max's 5 chapters. So there's a period of time where you're playing Max 2, 3, and 4, Riho 1 and 2, and it's not actually obvious where anything's going. And not in a way of like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen with X, or I wonder what the deal with Y is. Just in the way of like, I'm playing a load of seemingly disconnected murder mysteries. It felt like playing Phoenix Wright puzzles or courtrooms, but 4 different ones from 3 different games out of sequence. You didn't really know whether you were coming or going. There was an overarching thing, but it wasn't clear how anything mapped up, and not in a clever way, just in a disjointed way. But overall, it is really, really good. The characterization, especially, because what this game chooses to do, and to an extent a hurdle it makes for itself to clear, is have a much more grounded, realistic world, which, as anyone who's heard Paula talk about some of the VNs she plays will be aware, isn't always the norm. And actually a lot of what holds you with a game like a Danganronpa or an Ace Attorney is some of the wacky stuff, where things are going, how eccentric certain elements of that are, and that heightened sense of realism does something different to it, and probably holds you through some of those flatter, more deflated moments that a game like that is inevitably going to have. This game doesn't have that. And overall, I think it's much the better for it, because it makes it counterintuitively really stand out. But it does also mean that it hasn't got that to hide behind, if that makes sense. I wouldn't necessarily say this is the game that would convert someone for a number of sort of small interconnected reasons. Despite lacking the eccentricities, there are sort of Japanesey elements that might put someone off who isn't familiar with them or au fait with them, or has a bit of a preconception towards that kind of thing. It plays too much and too little like a VN at the same time. So like there's sections where it's asking you to bob around different areas on a map, and it's just like, I wish you'd just created this and I could keep reading the story. There's also segments of story where it feels like it's trying to give you things to do, but they're not really things to do. It feels like you're doing them for the sake of doing them, and it just feels like a needless waste of your time almost. And that's too strong language, but it's just to sort of emphasize what that is. But if you're someone who likes storytelling in games, who already has some kind of familiarity with VNs, or at least isn't entirely opposed to them, I think this is well worth checking out. Probably over the predecessor, Root Letter, because they're disconnected in most story ways. It's just the Shimane Prefecture that it all takes place within. And Root Letter's amazing. I really enjoyed that one, but it is a little bit more cliche in its narrative. It, at its core, is a innocent but slightly creepy romance plot. Basically, it's about a guy who used to have a pen pal when they were like teenagers. She told him all about her friends, her life, and what was going on, and then she just disappeared. And after a few years, he finally sort of plucked up the courage to go back to the city that she lived in and try and find her. And he's got to work out who her friends were, with time split apart based purely on the descriptions that she'd given him. Obviously, everyone's moved on. They've got adult lives now, and ultimately work out the mystery of where she's gone. It feels like it makes a lot more leaps. The story feels a little bit more like an excuse for the plot to happen. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. It felt like a very strange sentence when I formulated it.
It sounds like visual novels to me. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, exactly. Whereas Root Film actually feels like a proper story in totality, even with those flat moments in the middle. And I think it's a better place to start. And if you enjoy that, you'll probably have a great time with Root Letter as well. What I'm trying to say is it's a really good game.
We're dancing around it, but it's a good game.
Yeah, and I would also say if you can play it on Switch, or if you have access to remote play functionality on PS4, or, and I need to check if the game's on Steam before I say this, if you're planning to get a Steam Deck soon, I think this is one of the many games where having it in a portable form does sort of make all the difference to it and to what you do with it.
I'm just gonna say, like, in general, visual novels just fit portable formats so much.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. Looks like it is PS4 and Switch only. So ignore what I said about the Steam Deck. With this game in particular, I actually feel like this is a game you'd really, really enjoy, Paula. I think it'd be a really cool palette cleanser for you between Keiji Inafune's daughter, the murder mystery, and Travel Back in Time Girl.
Actually, I've been like looking at both Root Letter and Root Film for a while now. I haven't found like a time to actually buy the game without killing my finances, because there's usually something else killing my finances.
Amen to that.
Yeah, but I really want to check this one out eventually.
Yeah, I would say for you, Paula, with your background with the genre, Root Letter might actually be a better place to start, just because it's a little bit shorter. So root film is around about the 15-hour mark. Root letter, HowLongtToBeat.com. Great website if you want to know how long it's going to take you to beat a game. Has it at 9 hours. My recollection is that I beat it in around about 7.5. I'm quite a fast reader, so it's one of those. But yeah, good game. If it sounds interesting, absolutely go and check it out. And then the other one I played, and I'm a little bit cooler on this one, is the Banner Saga, which had been sat on my phone. I got it in a Humble Bundle back when they still did Android bundles, so we're talking 7 or 8 years at this point. And Paula playing the game was finally the spur I needed to actually start in and give it a proper go. It's a weird one in the sense that the combat is fine, verging on good. The story is fine, verging on meh. But I feel like as a package, they really aren't cohesive, even though great pain has been taken by the developer to try and make it so. And I'm not really sure why that is. I've been struggling over the past few days trying to put my finger on exactly what goes wrong. With the interplay of the two anyway, with combat, I know exactly what doesn't quite go wrong. And that is just that it's really difficult to balance the system that they've made. So for anyone who's listening who's not familiar, battles in the Banner Saga give units 2 values. Strength or vitality, I'm not sure what they call it. They give you a red meter, and shield, which is a blue meter. That red meter is both your damage output and your health. So the idea is that you choose between chipping away an enemy's shield, which is like your ability to damage the shield is a separate parameter from your strength. And you will always be able to do at least 1 shield damage to an enemy, no matter how much the strength disparity is. Or you try and take a swing at their health points. And the amount of damage that you can do to that is dictated by how much more strength you have than them, factoring in how much shield they've got. And if it's in your favor, you can do like 7 or 8 or 9 damage in one hit. If it's against you, then there can be like a sub 50% chance to even do the 1 damage. And there's a willpower system beyond that helps you buff attacks, but that's almost besides the point, because if you compare it to something like Fire Emblem, which obviously you've been playing, Alex, and you've been playing Paula, your damage output is independent from your health. So it's just way easier to balance. And while those two being tied together does make for some interesting emergent things in combat encounters, far more often it means that your combat's either going to be way too easy or skull-crushingly difficult. And there's just no happy medium to find. They really struggle with it throughout. I rarely felt that I was in a battle that felt like a healthy challenge start to finish. And that's a weird one because you're either breezing through the battles or you're just like, what the fuck is it? And to be honest, far more often it's breezing because it was on normal difficulty. As long as you can keep a couple of Val alive in your group, you can steamroll most opponents. And as Paula alluded to when she talked about the game, there are certain characters, certain abilities, certain item equipments that can low-key break the game, which is not ideal. The other wrinkle as well is it's A-B turn taking. So one of your units takes a move, then one of their units takes a move. And what that means is if they have like 9 or 10 units out, you are almost at an advantage, which it shouldn't really be, because you will take turns much more frequently than they will. Equally, if you're not careful and you get a team down to 5v2, let's say you've got 5, they've got 2, they're actually much more dangerous to you because they can hit much more frequently. And so it's just a terrible situation to try and balance out. And the story's fine, but it doesn't really grab and it doesn't really connect well enough. And having played it, I actually understand why both of you weren't all that enthused about going and finishing the series, because I finished the first game, even though it's a little bit of a cliffhanger and a somewhat unsatisfactory ending. I don't really care what happens to these people. You know, I don't. Yeah, no, I just don't really care about the characters, and that's such a failing of a story-focused game. You know, you want me to care about the people that I play through. That is where the story falls short, actually. This is such a stream of fucking consciousness. The problem is you have like an A thread, a B thread, and a C thread, and you spend too much time not dealing with any one thread at any one time, that by the time they all come together, you're actually not quite sure whether you're coming or going. No one thread is strongly characterized enough. It doesn't do enough to keep you on top of everyone. And there's this really weird map that you can technically go and have a look at, but it's just a lore dump. And I never felt like I truly understood the topography and the way that the world connected together, which kind of sucked.
Honestly, I
Yeah,
mostly jumped off the
Sorry,
games
go on.
just because I played it on like way early on the PS4, and by the time the third one came out, I was like, oh, I'm on my Switch now, though I don't really want to play it on the PS4 anymore. Like that was honestly it. Like, and I was like, oh, is my save gonna jump over? And then I was like, it's too much, it's too hard, and I was like, I'm done. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay, but even then,
which is
that's
also
like
because I didn't
characters
want
don't
to go
bother you
back
enough.
on. Exactly,
Yeah.
right? Like I was like, if I cared enough, like with Mass Effect, I was like, I will move hell and water to transfer my saves and I'll figure it out. You know what I mean? But like with this, I'm just kind of like, sounds like a lot of work, and I don't really want to play the third one if my decisions from my other two games don't carry over. I mean, then what's the point, right? So like, it's just the length of time between them. I was like, I'm done.
I love
I
how
mean,
you merged
recently-
the saying, I'll move heaven and earth and come hell or high water. And you just got, I'll move hell and water.
Yes, that's what I'll do. I like, as I was saying it, I was like, this isn't right, but whatever. Have
That's this
confidence.
episode's title done, guys. Sorry, Paula, what were you saying?
Yeah, like the only reason I even checked the game was because it was like a couple of bucks on the eShop, and I had around a couple of dollars worth of gold coins that were like pretty much about to not exist anymore. I'm glad I didn't spend like actual money on the game, because otherwise I'd be probably mad or more disappointed with the ending of the first game than I actually was. And I am very sad to say this about the game, because the idea of the Banner Saga is actually one with a lot of potential, but the execution was lackluster.
Yeah, they didn't stick the landing. That's ultimately it. And I think if they'd actually stuck to doing it as a discrete story rather than 3 blocks, I think it would probably be a lot easier to pace that, because it when you think about it in that context, it sort of makes sense that they've rushed these 3 threads to bring them together in time for you to go into the second game, so that you're at least going in neatly. But I don't think you really get enough time with any one group.
You know,
It's just a bit.
I am curious.
Well.
Like, I think I would say they're probably a group to watch. You know what I mean? Like, I have a feeling, because this, like, to be fair, this was this group's first game, right? Like, this developer. I don't necessarily know if it was the actual like developers themselves, because they were ex-BioWare staff, right? So it's not their first games ever, but this was their first game as like a studio, and so I feel like they're got to be working on something else, right? It's been 2018 since. I'm certain they're working on something, and like, as much as Banner Saga didn't like fully nail it, there is a lot that is impressive about it, right? Like, I mean, even just from an artwork wise and like conception wise. So,
The art's beautiful. Yeah, that can't be overstated.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was thinking, because they're I don't know. I have a feeling whatever they would do next is going to, at the very least, be interesting. You know?
Yeah.
I agree.
Should we move on to retirements? Is that it?
Segue.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Alex, let's break me up. Tell us why you're not playing Enslaved Odyssey to the West anymore.
I just played a bunch of platformers. It's like, I was kind of done. I go through spurts. Honestly, this is a to be continued thing. I'm not actually like retiring this heavily, because look, I bought this game, my God, so many years ago, and I hadn't been playing it. And so I just, for a little, for a brief period of time, was playing it. And so it's just going to go back to the not playing mode, which it has been in for most of its existence as a game in my collection. Oh yeah, it came out in 2010. So I probably honestly bought this game over 10 years ago. Maybe less than that, but a long time ago. So yeah, I'm just kind of done. The reason too is that like Psychonauts 2 came out, and I sort of knew when it came out that I was going to put this down for a bit. But the thing is, Psychonauts 2 is like, a puzzle platformer with action. And that's like kind of what Enslaved is. And I don't really want to put those like next to each other, because I'm just going to compare them, and like, that's not fair to Enslaved. Which, Psychonauts 2 has 11 years on this game. It's just not fair. I want to give Enslaved its proper chance. And I also go through like, I don't know if people do this too, but I go through spurts of console gaming and like gaming based on platforms. So like, I don't often actually have that much time to like sit in front of my TV and play games. I got lucky this past week because it's been a week off. I'm going back to school starting on Wednesday. So, by the time you listen to this, I'm back in school, which means this fella ain't going to be playing as many games, and he'll probably be playing more handheld games because it's easier to just pick it up in between a homework session or something and bang out like a few minutes playing a game than it is to just, you know what I mean? Like I got to be in the right space to sit down and play a game with a controller in front of my TV. Like I just need to have like at least an hour to like get into that. I find little fits and bursts doesn't work for me. So that's why. Nothing to do with the game really. more just lifestyle shit, What about you, Rick?
Well, that's really actually a lovely segue into why I've soft retired Wargroove for PC, because I was having a great time with it. I just didn't particularly want to play it. Like with that kind of strategy RPG, I really do have to be in the right headspace for it. And having sort of played through the first 3 acts, I know there's 7 because I had a little Google for a guide just to see how long the campaign goes and how many campaign levels rather. I can English. There are left. So I saw that. I was like, oh, that's a lot. I'll probably park it down and just play a couple of levels as and when I feel like it. So it's still installed on my PC. I will come back to it. That is, in the truest sense of the word, a to be continued, not the kind of to be continued we tell ourselves when we sort of retire a game and weren't fully about the retirement. My other 2 retirements I'm fully about, though. And they were 2 Hail Marys on the 3DS, games that I'd heard were sort of dog shit. I wanted to give them a try anyway because my 3DS is hacked. One of them is anyway. And there was 0 cost to entry. The first of those 2 is Centipede Infestation. This is a twin stick shooter with no second stick where you have the 4 cardinal directions to shoot in. Oh, it's dog shit.
Oh, no.
Oh, it's not good.
Oh, no.
And
Christ.
it gets better stroke worse because what they've done for the story is they've got these cartoon segments that I think they brought the Zelda CDI devs out of retirement.
Oh, no.
It's bad. Oh, it's so terrible. It's not even really animated. It's just a series of like stills. So almost in the middle. So where like they want it to look like they've animated it, but you've got like someone running and then coming to a stop and then doing something. But it's like 3 discrete drawings and they just like do some effects around them to make you think that they sort of tried to animate it a little bit, but they really fucking haven't, and it's not good in the slightest. I played for like 4 minutes. I was just like, no, I'm done with you. And then I went and played Rodea the Sky Soldier for the 3DS, and I played for longer. I played for about half an hour. Oh, it's bad. So this game was who was it? It was someone who had, like, prior to this, actually a reasonable track record.
Oh, no, that's the Sonic dude.
It's not Yuji Naka, is it?
It is. Apparently,
I thought it might
apparently
be.
This game is really good on the Wii. Apparently, it's quite fun on it. Apparently, the 3DS port.
It was originally
developed for the Wii.
Ish. Yeah. But then the Wii wasn't a thing anymore. So it released for the 3DS and the Wii U.
Right. When you play... Sorry. Yes, on the Wii U, apparently, it's quite fun. But I've heard it's broken as hell on the 3DS. Like, weird, but sort of fun. Yeah.
It feels like a weird, like, ROM hack of an alpha build of Gravity Rush. Yeah, so you can quote-unquote fly. What that really amounts to is you jump, press A again to go into flight preparation mode, which is your 3D model, like, spunking themselves in a circle while you point where you want to fly at. You press A again, and they sort of make a beeline for it. And then there's, like, a Sonic homing attack style thing that you can do while you're flying. Again, it's like a jankier version of Cat's Kick in Gravity Rush. But it doesn't give you proper camera control. So everything you're doing is on the left analog stick. So it becomes really wonky because you're moving the character and the camera at the same time. You can L and R it, but it does it in like 45-degree increments sometimes. And sometimes it does it in 90-degree increments. And you never know which increment you're going to get. And it's fucking horrific. It's really so horrible to try and control. And the flight, one of the things that made Gravity Rush so forgiving is that all you're doing is changing the direction gravity falls. So you can fly wherever the fuck you want for as long as you want. If you need to reorientate 4 or 5 times, if you want to fly around the thing a bit to get a recce on it, you can do that. You can't do that in Rodea because your flight is on a meter that like resets when you hit solid ground or when you kick off a wall. But the kicking off a wall is really unreliable. And reaching solid ground is quite hard to do because you're not really doing precision flying. What you're doing is launching yourself in a direction and praying. And the only way to properly land, other than just like flying into the ground and guerrillaing it, is you have like a ground pound attack down on the analog stick, which is also like changing your pitch because it's all the one fucking stick. and pressing B. And because it's all on the one fucking stick, it is really difficult to try and work out where that down is going to hit. I can't tell you the amount of times I just threw myself into oblivion in the half hour I was playing with the game because I couldn't land properly and I was running out of energy. So I needed to land somewhere. I needed to make an attempt. It's bad, yo. Just don't touch it. Go and play Gravity Rush.
So, interesting addendum. There is a Wii version of this game. So, this game was released on the Wii U with the Wii version as a bonus. So the disc was on it. And the Wii version is a very different game from both the Wii U and the 3DS games. And it is considerably better. Like, it's not a crazy good game, but like it's in the 7 to 8 ranges when people actually review it. And like, it's a little interesting, it's a little different, but it's actually apparently pretty fun on the Wii. So, like, if you ever actually have a chance, play the Wii version, because apparently that's...
I might have to have a look. I mean, to be fair, considerably better is a low fucking bar. Let's just be clear on that. It's not a compliment in any sense of the word, but that is interesting.
Yeah.
The one other thing I will say
Nintendo
as well...
Life, I think, did a video on it recently, because I remember watching this and going like, oh, that actually looks kind of neat. It's very different looking, you know, but yeah. So anyway, there is a Wii version. It does exist.
Okay. I will also say as well, just if you were somehow still on the fence, the story is the tweest shit I've ever heard. It's like, oh, the princess has got like a key of time that of course lets her time travel, and the evil kingdom of Garuda wants it for themselves. They come into orbit once every 1,000 years, so she gives you, her robot bodyguard, half the key for some reason. And then like you fall asleep somewhere and you wake up 1,000 years later and the princess is gone and you've got to like find your way back. It's yeah, just no.
Oh Lord.
Anyway,
good to know. Shall we move on to what we're playing? Maybe Paula, why don't you regale
I was going to say,
us?
because Alex, you and I have natted on for all of this episode so far.
Okay. So, I've been playing Breath of the Wild. I got all the pieces of armor from the amiibo sets, finally. I still need to upgrade them if I want to do the 100% thing. I'm gonna meditate on that one because I need star pieces, and those are rare. And I also activated the Wasteland Tower. So I have only 2 towers left to activate. The map is almost complete. That's pretty much all I've done on Breath of the Wild because all my time has been spent on the 2 other games. So I've been playing Amnesia later. And this one is the first of 3 fun discs to the Amnesia Memories Otome game.
3.
There are 3. There's Amnesia Later, Amnesia Crowd, and Amnesia World.
Okay.
And the original game is Amnesia Memories. The thing about this game, I actually need to explain a little bit the first game to actually talk about the second game, and it makes some semblance of sense here.
We won't understand either way, but go ahead.
Thank you.
The listeners might though, so give them what they need.
Okay, so Amnesia Memories is an anime game where you play as this girl who, thanks to this magic creature called Orion, has amnesia. The way the game is set up is that the main character wakes up in this mystical space, gets an explanation from Orion, and then she is prompted to choose a quote-unquote world that could be like a world to return to. She then has to recover her memories from that specific world, and that's pretty much the way of how you clear the game. But also, she has to keep the fact that she's missing her memories from the people she knows, because otherwise she might get trapped like in a hospital or in any situation that could be dangerous to her. And also she needs to survive until a certain day because some of these worlds are pretty much trying to kill her, or there's people out of her life in some of these worlds, depending on which one you select. So the worlds are named after like suits of cards, like diamonds, club, hearts, and spades. And after clearing like these 4 worlds or routes, you unlock the 5th world that is like the Joker. And then you get like an explanation of what exactly is going on here and why your memories are missing in the first place and why sometimes it seems like everything's trying to kill you. So the thing about this game is that for anyone who knows Steins Gate, where the protagonist pretty much is trapped in this kind of time loop to save someone, you have like a reverse situation in the sense that the main character doesn't really know what's happening, but there's a specific character that is pretty much the Joker who is trapped in a time loop. So you're pretty much like seeing like the different realities these other characters is seeing, and the true root is like pretty much that you pretty much reach what is considered Steins Gate in this game. So this Amnesia Memories was my first Otome game ever. It was a well ride. It is usually recommended for people entering into the Otome world. I don't know if it's the first place to start like right now, but back in the day when there weren't a lot of Otome games out there, this was like the place to start, and many people that are playing Otome games now started with this one. So in Amnesia later, as I said, it is a fantasy, so it both deals with like after stories and like what if scenarios from the original game. And the one I went through like during this week was Ukios, which is the quote unquote like the true ending of the prior game. You have like this new story kind of thing that is like a what if scenario that takes place still like during the main story of Amnesia Memories, but also you have the after stories. During Ukiyo's after story, the protagonist actually doesn't quite remember what happened during this month where she had amnesia, because her memories of everything are kind of hazy, and that has to do with the whole time travel and reaching Steins Gate factor. So the interesting part of this route is the player know what's up, but the character doesn't know what's up. A lot of this route has to do like with the character like, kind of like coming to terms with what actually happened, but also like finally like truly, I want to say like becoming a family with the guy of the route. It was kind of like a very sweet at times. It had some like moments that were like, okay, you have to pull the amnesia thing because otherwise you wouldn't have like a story besides like all the fluff and stuff. But overall, good route for a fan disc, I guess. That's pretty much like all the progress on that game that I got this week. Yeah, I think that's about it. I'll keep like going through different routes and maybe update my progress later down the road. But the big one I've been playing is Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia,
which is featuring prominently on the board behind you, which will mean absolutely nothing to people who are listening.
Ta-da! Let me be happy to have my board here. So, Fire Emblem Echoes, I'm just gonna call it Shadows of Valentia from here on out because the title is a mouthful.
Mm-hmm.
Shadows of Valentia is quite a different experience from the traditional Fire Emblem game because, first of all, it is a remake of Fire Emblem Gaiden. Fire Emblem Gaiden was the second game in the Fire Emblem series, and as every good second game in any series, it is the black sheep of the franchise.
Specifically, NES-era Nintendo series is weirdly.
Yep. And
yeah.
The thing about this game is that, first of all, you don't have the weapon triangle because, first of all, you don't have access to the like axe-wielding characters. So, well, the Shadow Dragon remake got the weapon triangle treatment. Shadows of Valentia didn't, and the way the game balances everything is that one of the things that matters the most in this game, and you have to take into account most of the time, is the terrain. Because different terrains will give like different bonus to hit and avoid to the characters. And not only that, they will affect the movement of many units. So the interesting thing is that units like mages and archers actually get featured very prominently, and they are very important and very integral part of your armies. And I said armies because in this game you also play with two armies. So you have Alma and Celica that are kind of like child friends, got separated, and each of all is out on a mission. So Alma is pretty much leading an army called the Deliverance, because invasion happened Fire Emblem style, and with other people are out to stop them. On the other hand, you have Celica, who, at the start of the game, she's a priestess, and she believes that a lot of the things that are happening is because one of the gods of the region, Mila, something happened to her. So her objective is to reach the Temple of Mila and see what went wrong and try to solve everything as bloodshed-free as possible, though it is a war, so no? So you have these two characters with their own armies, like going through the land of Valentia. And it is quite interesting because like Celica's army is very magic heavy. Like you start the game with 3 magic users and a cleric, and then you get access to other weapons. Well, pretty much starts like with a wildcard team because he starts with only villagers as his peers. So on the Alm side of things, you have a very customizable army, though there's like quote-unquote canon classes for each of the characters, so you're kind of like nudged to go into a certain direction, but you can do something like completely different if you so wished. And the way the story intertwines is that you first get like a whole act with Alm, a whole act with Celica, and starting like Act 3, you get freedom to choose like which, if you want to battle like a lot with Alm first, or a lot with Celica first, or like intercalated and stuff like that. The other thing is the map, because the enemy units in the map will sometimes like spawn, and they will start moving towards like your armies. And if they get the first hit, buckle up because you didn't get like a preparation stage. Instead, if you run into the enemy, you get the preparation stage and you have a certain advantage. But each time you move, something else is likely to move in the map. So you have to be careful whether you're using like Alm or Celica, because it happened to me because I didn't remember that the enemies could actually like move around in the map. So I moved Celica, and suddenly Alm was under attack because I left him like really close to a spawn point for enemies. I survived, though it wasn't quite fun because I wasn't quite prepared for it. The other thing that is different is that you have dungeon crawling segments. A little bit like in the dungeons in Persona, in the Mother Persona games, and in Chimera Intensive 4. So if you hit this enemy that is like in the overworld, before it notices you, you enter this map, and the enemies will already have a little bit of damage done to them. But if they attack you first, they actually get a free turn. And if you have like multiple enemies like nearby, just like in, I think it was in Persona 4, that if you had 2 enemies nearby, defeated one, and then the other group will like march in.
Yeah.
So in Fire Emblems, if there's 2 groups nearby, you'll battle both groups at the same time. So fun times. The enemies aren't like too difficult. It is quite balanced because there isn't like really any moment where you steamrolled everything or you get steamrolled by everything yet. I remember the game having a difficulty spike later on, but so far I'm not having any trouble at all. And finally, the one thing
I don't think it was that hard. Like I remember playing this game, and this is when I had very little Fire Emblem experience, and I don't remember it being overly punishing.
It isn't particularly hard, and it is very, very welcome because if the battles like in the dungeon crawling sections can kill your characters. So the one thing that it is appreciated is that if you get a character killed, you have what was the name of the item? You have an item that will allow you to go back like a couple of turns and pretty much like fix your mistake and save that unit if you still wish.
Thanks to Awakening, right? Because like Awakening introduced that concept in it, and I think they like brought it in for this as well. And we're like, let's have the rewind.
I don't remember if Awakening had something like that. I do remember like casual mode.
Did. Yeah, I'm like, because I remember that being, I think, the first time that they allowed you to have this like ability. Because remember, Awakening dealt a lot with like time stuff, right? Like there was all this like from the future, like that main character. Remember, she like poofs from like a different time or era.
No spoilers, please.
No,
also,
that's not spoilers, bro. That's like right away.
No, but you don't rewind time in Awakening. You can save in the middle of the chapter instead of bookmarking.
Yeah.
You
but
could
I
also
mean,
just turn permadeath off altogether,
right? Because it was like limited.
Yo, I am pretty sure you can't. And I played that game 5 times, so I'm
Really?
positive.
Okay, well, I'm gonna
Yep.
trust your judgment then. I must
Who's
be
right?
remembering.
Let us know in the comments down below while you're
I'll tell you right
smashing
now,
like.
it's probably Paula. I must be thinking about when I was playing Shadows of Valentia then, because did they have it in the 3DS versions? Because I feel like sorry, in like the Fates games, did they have it in that one? Am I thinking about the Fates?
My memory on those is a little bit fuzzy because I played the 3 games like in a week.
Oh my god!
I didn't sleep that week.
You didn't need sleep. You needed answers.
But
yeah.
did I really want the answers?
What good are the answers if you can't even remember them?
Yeah, I remember like the certain segments of the game, and
maybe it was just 3 houses actually. Yeah, Echoes and 3 houses. I think maybe are the only 2 that had it.
Okay.
Yeah, Tree Houses sounds more like it.
Yeah.
Though I didn't get far enough to get that ability, I think.
Well, don't listen to me, folks. It was not now. I must have been thinking about when I was playing Shadows of Valentia then.
Or Tactics Ogre has a similar system. I don't know if you've even played that. That's probably just a non sequitur.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah, ignore me.
I haven't.
I don't know why I brought that
I've
up.
just derailed the whole thing. Anyway, sorry, Paula. Any last thoughts on this one?
Besides, it is a very good game. Play it. Besides, it is different, but it is still good.
Is this a replayed this before? Or?
Yeah, I played this one before. I don't remember. Whenever it first came out, I played it back then. So since I'm trying to play like all the Fire Emblem games, I was like, hey, let's play Gaiden. Wait, no, let's play Shadows of Valentia because Gaiden is probably broken.
Yeah, probably. It came out in 2017.
So yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's all right, yeah.
Oh, so after Fates then. Yeah, sounds about right, yeah. So,
yeah, right. Sandwich right between that and 3 houses, basically.
Yeah, because
mhm.
Fates was 2015, right? Yeah, and then that one. Oh, that must have felt... So playing it, because I played it, I think, before I actually played Fates, and it was very fun, but I bet you that was a weird game to play after you've played Fates and Awakening. That's probably why it got, like, mixed reception, because good game, just... Yeah, that's a weird
Different
game between Fates and 3 houses, now I think about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, it is an excellent game, but I think Fates in particular... Especially Birthright. That game is so easy.
Yeah.
If you play like anything like after that, you'll probably get your ass handed to you.
Yeah.
Or like you're
course,
gonna have a nice time there.
Yeah, Birthright was a nice place to start. Like I remember I played Awakening, then I did Birthright Conquest Revelations, and it felt like it felt like this beautiful scaling up as I went up. But
yes.
If you're a fan of the series for ages, you're probably like, bah! Nice. Why don't we truck along then? Once again, we've talked so much about what we've been playing. We're long-winded, folks. You should be used to this by now. But I actually don't have as much to say about these other ones here. I'm playing more of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Good. It's not grabbing me yet, which is sort of sad. But that's also, I'm only in the second case, which frankly is the first case, right? Like the first case is always the tutorial case, which is a case, but is it really a case? And the second case is actually, it's reminding me like a little bit too much of the first Ace Attorney, to the point of where I'm just sort of like, no spoilers on why, but like, yeah, it's fine. I'm not grabbed yet by it. Like I'm kind of hoping that I'm going to get like a little more into it soon. I'll actually talk about this a little bit later. I have something to bring up in our next topic, but like, yeah, anyway, Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. I'm really hoping I get more into it soon. Music's still fucking dope though, so that's nice.
Yeah. Also, to be fair, like I myself, like I think it was like around the third case where the game like really kicked into high gear and got my full attention.
That's kind of what I've heard, and like honestly, that's sort of the case with some Ace Attorney games anyway. Some of them do just take a while to ramp right up because they're setting up a lot of stuff. And this game has to set up all new characters again, so I'm kind of like, all right, I'm giving it its time, you know? Like, I'm sure this will grab me. It's just, I'm not there yet. It's like Breaking Bad. It took me 2 seasons for Breaking Bad to get me, but once it did, I was in.
Yeah. Also, like, this sets the story not only for the first game, but for the second, because this is like a duology that is like heavily interconnected.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard the second one is really satisfying, like in how it all connects, so I'm looking forward to that. Playing more of Tomato Adventure. This game is still very funny and very adorable. I will say, set your expectations when you're going to play this game. Like, I have a high tolerance for like little random JRPG style games like this, but like basically the way it works, it's like you've got the gimmicks. I like the gimmicks too, because like I said, they have different controls. Like one of them is straight up, they show you a like the cardinal directions along with like the diagonal ones, and a little like ball will go in there, and you have to like move and like with the D-pad and like hit the A button on all of the little ones for your attack to move correctly. And like they do some clever shit with the attacks, and like they're like little mini games for each of your attacks. And I'm like, neat. Like even like I feel like it does way more than what like the Mario games would go on to do, because those games would sort of just be like time it right, and like that was kind of basically it. But this is like there's more than timing. There's memory stuff and things like that. There's even some that are kind of luck based, which if you have save states, you always win.
Naughty.
Which is actually sort of important, because like it's tied to your thing called the awe meter, and like there's this awe meter which you can unleash like really special attacks, but if you fail one of your attacks, you lose all your kind of star power in it. So there's this kind of like push and pull of like, do you make your attacks really hard to like nail, but if you do nail them, you get like a ton of star points and attack, or do you lower it down a bit? Like the game's like, do you want to gamble? And it does it in a fun way. Or do you want
to be a dirty cheater?
Which I am. Though there's some you can't fudge. Like some of them are like tapping A quickly or like timing, and you just can't screw that. Like you just got to be able to do it. Anyway, story's really fun so far. I'm like maybe a third of the way through the game. It's one of those games where like the enemies are all on screen, so you can avoid them if you want, but the battles are pretty fun, so like you might as well not. And if you don't, you're going to be like a real strong. And the boss battles are actually kind of interesting, because often you can target different parts of them, and like there is some strategy over like, okay, what do I hit first? Like how am I going to do this? Not always a ton, but like you can lose at times if you're not careful. And there's no like healing spells or anything, so like you're gonna have to use your items, but you do find out that one of your moves can heal you. But you gotta really do a lot of hits, so you gotta have to use it properly. So
you gotta reload the state a couple of times.
Yeah, like you just or no, you don't actually have to do that, which is kind of nice. You just gotta make sure you're like ready to go. Yeah, you gotta save state it. Yeah. Anyway, it's a fun game. I'm really enjoying it. And I'm playing a game that both Rick and I are playing, so we'll chat about this. Playing Ghost Trick Phantom Detective. This game, like, the only quibble I'll give with this game, and I can't even really fault the game for this. Like, it's not its fault. It's just that, like, eventually, as the puzzles get more challenging, they do sort of get to a little bit to a point where you're like, what the fuck do I have to do? And, like, you kind of have to do, like, your repeat, and, like, sometimes it has beautiful animations, but like sometimes those play out a little too much, and if you're just trying to solve it, you're like, oh fuck, I gotta go all the way back and like solve this thing. So that's like a really minor quibble on it. Like I feel like I can overlook it because like what it's doing is so good, but yeah, there is just a bit of that, like especially as you start to get to the areas that actually do require you to kind of think outside the box and experiment a little bit. You sort of feel like you have to like go back and like re-experiment a couple times. But
I can't say that's my memory, but it'd be interesting to see if I find that on the replay. Anyway,
yeah,
because this is your first playthrough, isn't it? Or am I making that up?
Yeah, this is my first playthrough. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But again, this is what I mean. Like, it depends on your tolerance for it at a certain point. Like, there's really only 2 moments I can think of right now where it was just like, damn, I wish I could get to the trying it a little quicker than having to wait. Like there's a stealth segment in particular where there's just a fair bit of waiting that you're like, come on. But the game's pretty good at like figuring that out. But anyway, really, really fun. The characters are so well realized. Like this is something that I really enjoy about the game and Shu Takumi's work in general, is that like his characters are very much people. Even if they're in a crazy world, the world is stylized and it's consistent. Like this world in here has like a consistent logic to it, even though it's insane. It's dealing a lot with death and some crazy scenarios, but like it all feels cohesive and whole. And it's actually something that I don't know how the hell we got this game in the West. Like, I'm so glad it came. It makes zero fucking sense to me that this game came to the West. Like, I'm genuinely like, how did that happen? Like, Ace Attorney, like, investigations and shit didn't come to the fucking West, like, the second one. And then this game did. Like, I'm like, also sort of sad because maybe it's part of what killed it. But, like, it's such a, like, a fun, excellent game. And I'm so glad that it did get a full localization because it's wonderful. But it also makes me, like, I'm going to bring this up again later in the topic, but sometimes you get these sometimes we hit on a series and we hit on an idea and the idea is great. And so then the company wants to keep making said idea because said idea is good and said idea makes money. And said idea gets a lot of sequels and they're great. And I love them. And Phoenix Wright is one of my favorite series of all time. But also, like, maybe let Shu Takumi go do something else. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, because when he does something else, he makes this. And it's so fucking good. And, like, I'm glad it's a one-off. I'm like, it only exists as this thing. And I'm like, that's so dope. But I also understand that it probably, and it, from what I know, Ghost Trick took so long to make because they're creating a full world, right? And, like, that takes a lot of work. And, you know, Ace Attorney can kind of iterate on itself a little bit, which is also great because sometimes you get really cool shit from that. But I don't know. There's no real answer to it. All I know is I'm enjoying Ghost Trick. What about you, Rick?
Yeah, so Ghost Trick, for a multitude of reasons, just would only ever be a one and done. The way the story plays out lends itself to a one and done. The nature of the world, the nature of the conceit and the way it's sort of formulated. I played this way back in, crikey, it must have been 2011 or 2012, not too long after it launched. I gave the game out 10 out of 10. I absolutely adored everything about it. I didn't find particularly the problem that you were having around things being over animated. I mean, it's something that I generally find in puzzle games, just like, all right, I get it, let me solve it now, sort of thing. But I don't remember having anything like that with this game. I remember this just being an absolute pleasure from start to finish. At the moment, my replay, because thanks to certain global world events, I'm not able to go home and pick up my copy as readily as I might otherwise. Because I have a DS copy. I did think about buying a second copy. Oh, they're expensive now. So
yeah, don't even try.
Yeah. So what I thought is, well, I'll give Capcom a little bit of money. I'll get the Android version. Yeah, it's been delisted. So I went and found myself a copy in Somalia, and so far so good. Yeah, that's the thing. Pirate's life for me. Anyway, so I'm having a great time with it. I'm loving revisiting it. So much about what they put together in that game is just pleasurable, right down to some of the sound effects.
Yeah.
Like the surprise, oh, it just...
There's some
nostalgia
Ace Attorney,
just firing in my head.
Yeah, there's some Ace Attorney stuff in there too, because like when a chapter ends and it has that like do 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 like thing, and then you save your game and it's like clunk, and I'm like, it just got me where I was like, yeah, Paula knows exactly what I'm talking about. I was like, that's like
that sounds satisfying,
like, right? Because it's like you finish a chapter and it's like, yeah, you're done, man, good job, save and keep playing, and you're like, yeah. It's just nice. It's a little touch, but it's nice.
Yeah, bottom line, this game is fucking excellent, and if you're listening to this and you haven't already played it, you really, after you've played 13 Sentinels, Muramasa, Deadbolt, this is probably game number 4 on the like Rick won't talk to you until you've played these games list. Sorry, go on.
I was checking out like real quick on my DS because I want to have like the game like ready to play after the podcast so I don't forget. And this game has something Ace Attorney doesn't, and I really wish it has. That is like an actual like Spanish localization. Because there's so many people that I can't recommend Ace Attorney because they don't speak English, or they are just learning English,
or they've got better taste in games.
Hey, get out of here!
Get out of here!
Ace Attorney is phenomenal.
So casting for a new host in the HowLongtToBeat podcast is open.
2 specifically. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, I'm only in the prologue at the moment. I've completed like the first minor bit of a mission. I'm about to hit the part where we meet my favorite character, who's the police detective. I think I mentioned him last week, and he's like an Elvis-styled guy, dances in and out of scenes. It's all and jazz hands and amazing. But yeah, I'm really loving revisiting that. In terms of what else I'm playing, I'm still playing Kine. I'm still playing Valhalla. They're both excellent. Don't have anything new to say. Still playing Vagrant Story. The only new thing I have to say is after about 4 hours in game, I'm finally out of the catacombs, and that's been a welcome change of pace because you've got new environments. Like the first few hours of Vagrant Story, from an environmental perspective, in theory, you've got a catacomb and a wine cellar and a something else. Like they're labeled different things, but it's basically three hashes of the same environment. So it's nice to actually see a different skybox, some slightly different architecture. And then the only other new game I'm playing, and I don't think I'll be playing this much longer than I already have, is Silent Hill Book of Memories. the much maligned Vita spin-off in the Silent Hill franchise. What do I think about this game? It is odd,
Good
is what I'm
start.
going to say. Yeah. Well, it's like the worst elements of Silent Hill and Diablo combined in the least sensible way possible, right? So it's a Diablo-like isometric dungeon crawling type thing. There's not really any loot, right? You're
That's really
constantly
weird.
having to cycle through weapons. Combat is very, what's the word I'm looking for? Wooden, stiff, disjointed. There's a lock-on system, it just barely works. The game looks nice. From a story perspective, it has some interesting ideas, although I don't think I'll be playing it long enough to see where they go particularly. And I like that they've sort of swung for the fences and gone for something different. I just don't think it really works. Which is a bit of a shame. And from a level design perspective, because I think the dungeons are proc gen. It's not entirely clear, but based on the way that they're laid out, they've got to be procedurally generated. There's no way it's not. And on each level, you have to find like a certain number of puzzle pieces, and then they will allow you to do a quote-unquote puzzle at the end of the level to get you to the next level. It's a little bit like when games got ported to the Nintendo DS and they had like, now with new touchscreen elements, and it's literally just like you've got to put 5 statues in a specific order and stuff like that. Absolute token bollocks. They just shouldn't be there whatsoever. So the story's mildly interesting, but the gameplay's not compelling, doesn't really work, and there's a load of redundant gameplay mechanics that have sort of found their way into the game. So yeah, it's not a ringing endorsement, let's put it that way. And I'm only trying it because I've got a hacked Vita and I could do it for free, because this is another one that's bloody expensive now. 1, because it's Vita, and 2, because game prices have just gone up generally.
Yeah.
In the pandemic.
So next week in retirements. All right.
Yeah. I don't think I put it in retirement, so I think this is me formally telling you that I'm not going to be playing it anymore.
Oh, there you go. So this is retirement.
Yeah, I might even just pop it in and be like, yeah, I retired it, moving on. But yeah, I mean, that's it in terms of where I'm at with playings. So
okay. Oh, we went long today. That's all right.
Indeed.
Stick with us, folks, because we got a topic.
Speaking of games that we played for free.
Yeah, ish. Moving on to our topic of the week. So there's this article that Rick shared about streaming, and I don't know. It says streaming and subscription services, which I'm like, them be fighting words are the real enemy, or is it streaming and subscription services are the enemy? Which obviously that's just a sensational headline to get clickies and read the thing. But the brunt of the article does kind of go into which is fine. Look. Man got to make his money,
the cynicism right out the gate.
Online magazine. Hey, I used to have to write for some of this stuff. You have to make the titles that grab people. You know what I mean? Otherwise, who gives a fuck? No one's gonna look.
3 reasons they're awful. Number 2 will shock you.
Yeah, right. Like no one's gonna click on your goddamn thing if it's boring or too generic. But anyway, like essentially coming into going on this idea that like streaming services are essentially bad for art. Like that's kind of the take that they're going on, that it's bad for art and for like art preservation. And it also tries to say that but okay, I have a complaint here. It's trying to say that it's not good value because you have to get all of them, which I was like, that's such a dumb point. Because like, do you know anyone who has every subscription service? Like everyone I know has multiple different versions, you know what I mean? And like has sharing of it and like shares it to the point where like Netflix and them even realize they're like, everyone fucking shares these. Let's just make it a feature. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And I have to say, I pay for a slot on someone else's Netflix account.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, I'm fully there. But, and this is where it's interesting. So it's worth making a clarification, which is that the author is coming essentially from the angle of sales as a service, which is why they conflate subscriptions and streaming, which we'll probably end up talking a little bit separately, because really the pros and the cons for them do sort of split out a little bit. It's not one and the same, but they are one and the same in the sense that it's turning what was a discrete one-time purchase into an ongoing subscription model.
Yeah.
Generally, because no one's offering game streaming in and of itself. even Google Stadia was, we would like you to subscribe and also pay full price for the game that you don't own and only have access to at our pleasure.
And everyone was like,
So
nah, we're good.
Right, and that's why they're bundled in the argument. In terms of, everyone just shares them. Like, yeah, that's sick at the moment, but that is purely because Netflix is lax about it. Because
It's not because they're lax about it. I feel like that's such a misnomer. They're not lax about it. They made it a feature because it's what happens, right? Like they have to adapt to what people. No, it is a feature on Netflix. You have individual profiles. On Prime, you have individual profiles. On Disney Plus, you have individual profiles. Like it's what consumers wanted and what we demanded and what we've done, right? Like they could try to get rid of it, but they'll lose people. You know what I mean? Like that's part of that issue where it's like it's better to have them on board than to lose them
at this stage of the plan. So
yeah, but hypotheticals, bro, you can't can't in those. We have to work it like how does the market work? You know what I mean?
Generally, sure, but let me lay it out for you. So what companies like Uber and Amazon are doing is essentially operating at a loss on the assumption that they can do it long enough to choke out their competitors and develop a monopoly for themselves. At which point, they can basically ask what they want because they're the only game in town. That's the reason that investors keep putting money into those companies. That's where that is. Microsoft, which obviously Game Pass is the only real sort of functioning subscription service at the moment. You have PS Now, but as it stands, doesn't really work. You have Stadia.
Hold on.
3 people have Stadia, I presume, apparently.
I don't think
go ahead.
This metaphor tracks because I agree with you. That's what Amazon and Uber's models operate under. But they're offering a finite service, right? They're offering product. Uber, but even Uber, I don't think Uber's plan is to dominate all of them. They're filling in a niche, but like taxi services still exist. They can't take over it all. And they're losing a lot of battles right now because they're being forced to pay their workers. But anyway, Amazon itself is offering a finite service. That argument doesn't track with something like Netflix or Spotify or all these other things because in reality, like especially Netflix is operating on a loss because they're creating content. And that's different than taking out the little guy, right? Like, because they're making content to be consumed, but it's not the same as like I'm creating this particular physical product. It's like Netflix is never going to beat out everything. That's not their project. Their idea is that they want to continuously spend to make themselves indispensable to the viewer, to say, look at all the content we have. Why would you ever want to leave us? Yeah, sure, you can have your other Disney Plus and you can have your other shit. That's fine. We don't mind. But what we want is that you stick with us, right? Because like Netflix doesn't need them to be dead. They simply need, to have content. Same with Microsoft. Why would Microsoft have any interest in beating everybody out in the gaming industry? That makes no sense. They want the gaming industry to be strong and vibrant so that everyone sees how good of a product Game Pass is. Amazon is a whole different beast and a disgusting beast.
You've taken that at a place I wasn't even going.
Yeah,
where I was going with that, is Microsoft can afford to throw money at this forever. And they are in a situation, this is an interesting thing, we'll probably move on to the value proposition side of things at the moment. As it stands at the moment, if you're a Game Pass subscriber, assuming you're not worried about the ownership and some of the other drawbacks of that, in terms of purely what you get access to for the price that you get access to it, it's excellent at the moment. Now, if it gets to a point where Microsoft then suddenly aren't offering those games as discrete purchases, if it's only on Game Pass, you get to a point where you can, and Microsoft have already tried to do this with the Gold subscription, you can suddenly jack the price up. And then you're in a situation where people haven't really got much else of a choice.
Yeah, but you already see though how like we react to their decisions. Like this is the thing that I always sort of boggles me. It's like we say that they could do this, but like they even tried to raise the price of gold, and people said over my dead fucking body, and I was like,
didn't they try to duplicate the price of gold?
Yeah,
they doubled the price of gold.
And they tried to take something else away from it at the same time, and then it ended up they didn't follow through with it. But all it takes is one company to say, well, we'll ride it out, we'll follow through with it. And then it's a whole other ballgame. And I accept this is all a hypothetical.
Yeah, I know. But I also just don't buy that because, like, again, look at Google, too. And we mentioned this thing. Like, I hear this often, like, Microsoft can throw money at the wall. Sure. But, like, Microsoft threw money at the Xbox One, and that was dumb. Like, it required leadership. You know what I mean? Like, and it required an actual idea. Like, Google threw fucking money at Stadia. Google could afford to throw money at Stadia forever. Amazon can afford to throw money at the fucking game studios they're doing. Doesn't mean they're making good fucking games.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Money's not everything, right? And like, I get it, but like Game Pass is, I don't believe Game Pass is succeeding because Microsoft is simply throwing so much money at it. I think Game Pass is succeeding because it is a good idea. They hit the right idea and now they're pouring money into it. It's the fact that like you have to combine these things. I could have millions and millions and millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and just like say we're having streaming and just do it like Google does it and still not make it work. You know what I mean? Like there's a
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, are they throwing money at it because it worked well, or is it working well because they threw money at it, and money in the form of their own exclusives that they can make available through it? Like that's all I mean is you have to be huge and be able to eat a fat loss to be able to make that work even remotely in the way that Microsoft is right now.
I don't think they're not even making that much of a loss. I mean, with the subscriptions, they're doing pretty good. And like the cost benefit of like keeping people in it for that long, and it looks nice for them. But anyway, regardless of like, sorry, Paula, did you have something?
Yeah, sorry, I cut you off.
So trying to expand a little bit on the idea you brought that Game Pass did a lot right, and that's why it is pretty much like one of the, I think it's like the best subscription service for video games right now. It's because first of all, you can download the thing. I can't even like emphasize this enough how important that is, because PlayStation, I don't know how PlayStation now is operating, but for some time it was like streaming only, trying to stream anything with like very bad internet and hello data caps. I feel like with streaming services in general, data caps like really make themselves like known. Also, not only it is pretty affordable, like especially like here, it's not even like $10 a month. It's like $7 a month, I think. And you can get like that's the PC one, because I think it's $10 a month for the like both Xbox and PC one. But yeah, you have like multiple platforms. I integrated also like streaming to your mobile device, which I've heard is pretty good. But not only that, unlike PlayStation, they actually make payment easy, because in the PlayStation Store, you have to have like a credit card of the same country as your account. And as you know, here in TLA, we are like very limited on what we can buy from the PlayStation Store, like from our country, or we don't get the same deals that other countries get. So more often than not, we pretty much just use like the United States service for everything, save for Xbox, because they make it very easy to pay with whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah. And something that I also think that's like an interesting point too is like they talk about like artists in the article, like and whatnot, talk about how like things like this can like shift the way that games are made and like who's going on them. And like that's something where I actually think it's like a net positive right now, where like developers are like, bruh, our costs are covered. Like our game is covered.
Yes.
And then people get their fucking eyes on our game. It's like, right? Like, you know, you have that moment where you're like, holy shit. Like suddenly it's like a good, and creating smaller experiences aren't actually considered a bad thing now. It's like, oh no, you can have a fun niche experience and get it. Like, guarantee you, if the fucking like Outriders game didn't come out on Game Pass, no one in the planet would have talked about that game.
Because it's much more of a gamble. Now the caveat, and this is something that hadn't actually occurred to me in the context of this conversation when we were having it on Discord, is the perverse incentives that potentially come in. So Stadia, yes, it's redundant, but obviously this is an example of what can happen, sort of thing. They were shifting, or were talking about shifting, to sort of judging a game's success on their service based on number of days played. Yeah. Based on time played. And so what you end up actually is, if a company wants to be in a position to take what is a sweet deal to put yourself on streaming services, as we talk about this in 2021, they are maybe under certain pressures to design their games to want people to come back every day, or pad their games out because it's going to look better for their analytics in a way that isn't a problem if you're making a discrete one-time purchase, or less of a problem because obviously the Steam refund can sort of be sucky under the 2 hour mark. But broad bruh.
Also though, sorry, go ahead, Paula.
On the other hand, like smaller experiences often get overlooked, like for example, Steam, because it's like, oh, that is probably like, I don't know, a 2-hour game. I'm not gonna pay such and such for only a 2 hours of experience. So on that front, smaller games joining Game Pass is a very good thing because you are able to just make the small game you want to make and not bad out the content.
Similarly,
As it stands, assuming that it doesn't find itself in a situation where your platform holders are saying, oh, the last game you did, people only played on average for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So we want something longer from you. Or we want something where it has to be spaced out over a week and people have to sort of log back in.
But we're also saying, as if this is something that subscription services have created, this is the major AAA gaming studios' mantras right now. Like, fucking EA.
AAA, yeah, but then you're talking about smaller indies taking the deal, so then you have it on both sides of the...
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, I don't actually think that's as much what we're seeing because, like, you know, not a fucking crazy thought here, but when you make, fucking, I don't know, Mass Effect 4 costs a lot more money than making your 2-hour indie game. You know what I mean? So like ultimately how long it takes to play, that might actually be fine because, you know, Game Pass or whatever says like, okay, how long will people come into this? Okay, well, it's probably worth about this much. This is how many people are going to get it. And that probably covers your development costs at least. And then you're like, good, woohoo, you know? And then people get their eyes on it. More people buy them. Like there's already analytics that show like when a game enters into that, more people see it. The more people who play your shit, the better. Right? And if you can have a service that pays you for it, and Microsoft has set the standard now, right? And I actually this is why, look, I'm no fucking Microsoft's a company, like whatever. One day I can like them, one day hate them the next, depending on their actions. But like right now, I have to say that like I get the idea of like maybe one day in the future, but they've set a really excellent groundwork with Game Pass. And the groundwork is pay the artists, right? And that's what they do. They pay them. They go right to them and they pay them. And that's the thing for me where it's like, I don't know, or the publisher, right? Because they'll be talking with the publishers, so then the publisher does it. But that also means the developers are paid because developers work with you know what I mean? Like, it's like they get paid, at least, for the game.
Yeah.
And, yeah?
I forget a little thing that I remembered with Rick saying that there are like more like malice-oriented actions going on. Mm-hmm. I think it was Square Enix who wasn't like paying a studio because they didn't know like, oh no, we can't estimate the sales of this game because Game Pass and stuff.
Enough. Yeah, that was a recent.
Oh, that was.
Yeah, it was an investors thing.
Yeah.
They're not sure.
I'm not speaking in defense of publishers. Fuck Square Enix for lots of reasons that included. So let's be clear on that.
Yeah, but yeah, I can see like. I think it isn't the first time Square Enix does something like this, by the way.
Yeah, they've done
Square Enix have been scummy for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, like with stuff like that happening, yeah, I can see like that fear of developers maybe not getting paid outright because you have a publisher like in the middle managing everything. I would like to think that it doesn't happen that often though.
And again, it's like I don't think subscription service is the root of this issue, right? Like I feel like subscription services, streaming services are these really convenient and easy scapegoats for a lot of serious problems that exist within these industries. Yeah. And then we throw it on them. Like, I mean, people are acting like this concept of paying every month is new. This is fucking movie rentals, man. Like it's just, this is what this is. It's cheaper. In the run of a month, you would rent a movie once a week easily. Often more than one, and it would end up costing more than fucking Netflix. And like Game Pass was the same thing. Like, and cable and satellite, it's hundreds of dollars a month for this shit. And like, I don't know. Yeah. I just, when I hear people saying like, no, and this isn't on you, Rick. I feel like your opinion's more nuanced on this. But like, when I see stuff like this article and whatnot, like going in on subscription services, I'm just like, it screams of Luddism to me. Like, it's very much the idea of like, it's the tech's fault. You're like, you know, it's old man with the stick who's like, I love my VHSs. Makes me think of On Cinema with Tim Heidecker. But anyway, go ahead.
I mean, I'm sorry, go on, Paula. Sorry, go on.
No, that you brought up like rentals. Like one of the number one things that I hated, like when going to Blockbuster when I was just a little kid, they don't always have the movie you want, and when they do have it, there's a chance the disc is pretty much ready for the trash bin.
And that is an excellent jumping off point, because this is the interesting thing with you bringing it rentals. The problems are essentially the same problems as with physical rentals, just in slightly different configurations. So accessibility is one. It's not always going to be there. How many times, Alex, on this show have you said, oh, I had to play the game because it's about to leave the service?
Yeah, that's great. I got to experience it. I like that. I'm an indecisive man.
I mean, that's an interesting angle, but like, that's the thing. The game you want's not necessarily going to be on the service.
Yeah, so what? That's fucking life, bro.
Stick around. Right. There are games on services like Stadia where they are exclusives, where once that license runs out, if they go away, look at the Deadpool game on PS4, right?
Sure, yeah.
So that is a game that essentially you had two windows to buy, the original one and the one where they've renewed the license for Deadpool 2. If you didn't get it then, it's gone for good. Now, because that game was a discrete purchase, if you've got it, you get to keep it. Preservationists had a chance to preserve it. If that game were just being streamed, much harder to preserve, and if you didn't play it in one of those two windows, you can't even go and track down a disc copy. You're just screwed. It's just gone forever.
This is one where I have a hot take that you probably don't agree with. But sorry, I'll let you finish it.
I think this is the Abatage take, which is, it's great that I don't get to play this forever.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I come from theater. I'm a theater kid. I don't think we have an obsession with preserving every little thing that exists. And I get it. And look, I understand the desire, but like, I don't think everything deserves
temporary.
Yeah.
I get it, but also like as a reference point for future generations, it's sort of important.
Yeah.
Especially with games, because there's the element of interactivity creates a whole other set of problems, challenges, situations that future developers can look to previous games to have solved. It was a different article that I was reading around this situation, talking about preservation more than accessibility, which is the other issue that sort of ties into the rental type of thing.
We might want to save. I'd like you to finish. We might want to save preservation for another day.
We'll do preservation another time, but I'll finish on this point. So the guy was saying, of the games that I'd like to refer my students to in terms of talking about development challenges that have been solved, there's maybe 10% of them that I can legally recommend, that are legally accessible. And the vast majority of problems that people run into in development, chances are someone somewhere in a game has already fixed them. And so in that sense, continued access to those sort of things is good for us, the players. It's also good for us, the future players and the future developers. And to try and tie that into accessibility, which is where I think we're finishing this off, streaming takes that ownership, just as rental did, away from you. And essentially that's part of why it's so much cheaper, because your access is at the pleasure of the rights holder and the publisher, rather than, with digital purchase, you've got EULAs and it's all a little bit murky anyway. But realistically, Sony's not going to come knocking on the door saying, hey, we want that digital copy of Tsushima back now. Like, you've got that for good, basically. And that's one of the wrinkles with streaming and subscriptions.
Your console's still functioning. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Which is like, it's another thing. Like, it's like, what happens when you lose it? Can you re-download it? Like, how much do you actually own a digital game? It's one of the reasons why, like, I go, like, there are bigger issues, but sorry, we'll get into this another day. But like, one of my things is like, we've found a solution for preserving things, and it was called the library. But we often forget these things, and it's like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's an argument for me where I'm like, we should be having more of these built up for games and stuff. But that's like a whole other goddamn world. But one world where I don't think my big last thing, and then Paula, I want to give you off for your last thoughts on this. But like, my thing is like, I don't think things that make playing games easier and more accessible for more people are bad. I think they're a net good that have issues. And that's why for me, like with Game Pass, for sure, it's not fucking perfect. Like you mentioned, there's some things on ownership, but the fact that more people can play games, and I've already experienced a wealth of games that I never, ever would have played this year that are more niche in a lot of ways and rougher around the edges sometimes, but with interesting ideas. To me, I'm just like, that has added such value to my life, and it's just so nice. But anyway, Paula, what are your last thoughts on this whole topic? What do you think?
I don't think like streaming and subscription services are inherently bad, but there are like bad things that happen around it, but it isn't inherent to the form of distribution itself. It has to do like with other things that affect also physical media or like digital copies or something. I can't really think of a game right now that was able like to only be made because some subscription services, I don't know, bought it or something like that. But I can think of a series that is called The Dragon Prince that is only getting like the remaining of the seasons made because Netflix paid the people who made the first, was it 3 or 4 seasons? 3 or 4 seasons. I think it was 3. And the only reason they are getting to finish the series is because Netflix paid them to do so. Maybe they could have gone like the Kickstarter way, but to be honest, like all the crowdfunding platforms are like a whole different story that it's a whole different kind of worms that I don't really want to open right now.
That's a whole other episode.
Yeah.
Yep. So Game Pass is an excellent value. Does it suck that other services are like rising up because of Game Pass and they have, I don't remember, Ubisoft something or whatever. Yeah, but you always have like another option to get the game. Like as long as it isn't the only option, especially on the preservation side of things, because you can't, you could use OBS and ensure a copy of the movie on Netflix, if you know what I mean, but you can do the same if you're streaming a game. So as long as there's a way, like, I don't know, to download the game, to play the game, or access the game files or something, there's gonna be a way, or there's gonna be someone somewhere out there who's gonna take the steps to preserve it in case it goes away.
I think preservation needs to be our next topic because it's an interesting one. Because ironically enough, that article talks about how like streaming is making preservation harder when in reality it's the complete opposite. Piracy took off with streaming because it's so easy.
And that's an interesting distinction because the gaming situation is very different.
Exactly.
Let's not go there. Effectively, this is all a question of ownership for me ultimately, and subscriptions and streaming are a front on which that battle is very easily lost. And I think for me, that was probably the thrust of the argument that was resonant. We will get into that more around preservation because that's really where it comes to the fore.
But this is fun. I like debating. I like this topic. It's a fun one.
To be fair, do you ever own something like forever? Like cartridges
when
lost.
When the sun explodes and we're all burnt to cinders, I will own nothing, and it will have all been for nothing.
But I think
if you want to be like that about it,
I think it's even sooner in some ways. But sorry, let's save this. Save it for next week. Next week on How Long to Beat. Preservation. Does anything last forever? Do we all? I just listened to a podcast today about when we could die. Did you know someone lived to be 122 or 25 or something like that? That's crazy. All right. Now it's time for...
I take it we're not doing the question then.
No, we ain't. No question this week. It's how long to beat the game. We're already at like 150. We have gone long.
Woo!
Sorry, Paula. I think you're editing. Yeah, I'm sorry, girl. Speaking of that, Paula, what are we playing this week?
Ape Escape 3.
Okay.
Ape Escape.
Is that on the PS1?
So the preview shows the PlayStation 2 artwork.
Yes.
Okay.
I have seen that little dude with his little button hat, but I have never, ever, ever played any of these and even know what the hell they're about.
Right. Main, 10 hours. Main plus, 12 hours. 100%, 19 hours. Boom.
Damn, son.
Yeah. It might be like making things up because I'm pretty sure my boyfriend talk about Ape Escape at some point, and it seems that you're trying to catch some monkeys that pretty much ran away because they develop conscience or something like that, and you go with a net trying to bring them back to whatever place.
Yeah, that's they were. I've never played one, but that is the premise. Yes.
Yeah.
There was a PS. In fact, no, that's a lie. I tried the PSP one for 5 minutes. Hated that you had no direct camera control and deleted it.
Shit, man. I don't know. I kind of. God damn it. I sort of want to go in your direction because I feel like it's one of these games. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this seems to me like a quintessential, like 8 to 11 hour game kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like in that. But then you also ask the question of like, how long is the completion point of this? Is it longer?
That's the question.
Yeah, maybe I'll do something like maybe I'll do 11 hours.
Go on then. And Price is right me again.
Well, I can't help it.
Always.
When we get to a certain point with these games, there's only so many times I can put in. Maybe I'll go higher.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 10 hours and a half, 12 hours and 13 hours maybe.
Interesting.
11 hours, 13 hours, 30 minutes, 18 hours, and 30 minutes.
That's appalling.
Wait, maybe I'll do 19 hours and 30 minutes. No, is that too high?
God.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do 19 hours and 30 minutes. All right, Paula,
I hope
what do we
it's
got?
14 hours. Fuck you.
Yeah. Let me
Should I check the times? Why do I feel this is gonna be like a short game or something like that?
Yeah. Watch it.
Main story, 6 hours.
Ah.
Oh, shit.
No, I'm good so far. Go on.
Main and extras, 9 hours.
I'm good so far.
Completion is 12 hours.
Oh! Does that mean you got in, Paula?
No.
Yeah. Paula, you did it.
No. I overranked it. Oh, Paula did. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
awesome. So you're closing the gap. So it's 79 points for Rick, 77 for Alex, and 70 for Paula. Nice.
All the sevens.
Should have gone on the lower end. Whew, dang.
Oh, I'm so annoyed. Oh well.
That's funny. I thought it was a little higher one because this seems like Ape Escape, I assumed would have, a lot of collecting in it. Oh, well, that's it for this week. Thanks for tuning in. Next week, we're going to talk preservation. Oh, boy. The merits of it and all that. I'm excited. Chime in. If you have a question for the How Long to Beat podcast, by the way, which we didn't get to this week, you can send it to us at HLTBpodcast@gmail.com or in the Discord or in the forums. Oh, my God, so many places. What am I going to do? All right, see ya.
How are we going to keep up?
Toodles.
Take it easy.
Bye.